This is another Yosemite video that just like popped up in my suggested feed on YouTube. And I've been staying in canvas tent cabins in Curry Village since the early 80s, probably 1980, I think, is the first time that my mom started bringing us up there because we were staying in. I don't know what is up with that raven. He's like hanging out in the tree near me, just like talking to everybody right now. But anyway, so we started staying there in night. Oh, okay, he just flew away. We started staying there in like 1980, before my mom felt like she was ready to camp with us. Like, because we were still kind of little. I was like 6, my brother was 7, and she wasn't ready to start like pitching tents and getting campsites. So we stayed there quite a bit, until about 83 ish, I guess. Then we started actually camping. Um, but it's kind of like the experience is a bit like if you've ever watched The Parent Trap, and the early part of the movie, they have whatever that actress is who plays twins. She plays herself twice, right? Um, that she's at like a summer camp and she meets her twin for the first time, and she's like, "Oh, why do we look so similar?" Right? Whatever. But the type of structures that they were staying in was very similar to this.
Before we get into the video, I'd really appreciate it if you could hit that subscribe button where you can find loads more content all about hikes and accommodation and other things all in the US and Canada's national parks. Also, don't forget that if there is a video that you like in particular, to hit the like button on the video and comment below. Sunrise in the rear view. It's crisp up ahead.
Okay, so one of my questions for you, Rob Hikes, is why did you stay in an unheated canvas tent cabin when there was snow on the ground in the valley, which is somewhat unusual, by the way. The snow doesn't always reach the valley. So this is like the thick of winter, right? Like, when did you do this?
Now, although I have found the accommodation at Curry Village on Booking.com, I find National Park Reservations the best site to use. You go down and find Yosemite, and then you can view all of the accommodation types in Yosemite National Park. And just outside as well. Now you can see Curry Village is number 3 on the list. So you basically click that, and then you can view all of the facilities, the little extras, things available on the page itself. You can also compare prices to some of the other accommodations in the park, but we're going to stick with this one. So let's pick a date really far out in the future, because you need to book these things way up in advance, and the off season in winter is when it's more readily available.
For lodging, just because he doesn't mention it, my understanding, I don't know if they've changed any of their policies over the years, but generally for lodging, you have to book a year in advance. But for the campsites, they give you a shorter window, and they pretty much sell out like the minute they open it up.
So you pick your dates, you put in how many nights you want to stay, how many rooms you need, how many people in your party. And remember, you need to put 0 children if you're not taking children. You can't just leave it blank. And then you get a bit more information about the different accommodation types within that area. So we've got lots of different types because they do have cabins, but we're going to select a canvas tent. So you can see that there's heated and non-heated. Obviously, heated is a little bit more, and that does include electrical outlets as well. But I'm going to stick for now with the unheated one. So pop in there 1, and then total beds 1. So obviously you'd pick 2 if you need a bigger one for your children, and then I put not heated, please, and go to the next step. At this point, you'll put in all of your personal details and then your payment details on the next screen. And if it's available, you'll get an email back offering you the chance to check out. Sunsets on the summer, skies go over with you. So the check-in is conducted right here at the front office in this gorgeous building. The staff are really helpful. They'll give you the key to your room. They just verify some ID. There's no deposit, and they'll give you a map showing you where your tent is. And you can find.
Just as a side note, Yosemite, the National Park Service ended up getting in a contract dispute with their concessionaire, who had silently copyrighted all of the names of the various locations within Yosemite. So the reason he's calling it Curry Village right now is because I think they finally won a lawsuit to get the names back, because they had to rename Curry Village to Half Dome Village or some such bullshit. They had to rename the Ahwahnee Hotel, the Yosemite Lodge, like every location in the valley where you can stay and where they sell things had been copyrighted by the concessionaire without their consent. And so they ended up having to rename all of these locations for several years. And for those of us who have been traveling to Yosemite for decades, we're just like absolutely aghast that a concessionaire would come in and do this. It's the same concessionaire that they use up in Yellowstone, so I hope they don't do that up there too.
Signs all throughout the site which will tell you where the nearest toilets are, the shower house, trailheads, and of course those tent numbers to help you find where you're going to be staying for the night as well. So this was the one I was allocated, 709. So right outside you can see a really clear number on the door, and you can also see how close together they are. They're pretty close together, some more so than others.
You can also see that there's snow on the ground. I'm fairly certain that he is in the Boys Town section of Curry Village, which was formerly employee housing. And then when the 96-97, it was like a New Year's Eve flood. It was the 100-year flood. Wiped out a bunch of areas. There were two different circumstances that wiped out certain lodgings. One was that part of the Yosemite plan was they had to remove all buildings that were within 100 feet of the walls, because there were so many rock falls, it was dangerous, and they didn't want the liability of it. So the only structure they've let stay there is this stone building, this granite building that is the Sierra Club headquarters. That's the only one that's still right up against the walls. But everything else was moved 100 feet back from the walls so that if there were rock falls, people wouldn't get hurt, right? The other thing was 2.5 campgrounds were wiped out by that flood. So both of the upper river, the lower river campgrounds, and half of lower Pines, I think it's called, was also wiped out by this flood, and they just let those particular areas go back to nature. So it reduced the amount of places where people could actually stay, because he's going to start getting into pricing and stuff, and how it's getting really expensive to actually visit Yosemite, even to like get a canvas tent cabin. And the reason being is that there are less places for people to stay, and so they can only accommodate so many guests now. So most of what you see in Yosemite is day use, people who drive in for the day.
So right outside you have your own personal bear box. Now you can pop a padlock in the silver section that is in the middle between the two, and you open and close it by pushing a handle just underneath. In here, there's plenty of space. In the summer, of course, it's going to get quite warm, but it's perfect for storing your things. And
hold up. He doesn't know the history behind these bear boxes. First of all, that is, I think, an improvement. I don't recall that they had the bear boxes directly in front of the canvas tent cabins in the past. You had to go out to, like, basically the parking lot, and they had, like, a long line of bear boxes, and you're responsible for providing your own padlock on that. But they have, over the decades, had to constantly change out the locking systems on these bear boxes because the bears are really smart and they keep figuring it out, right? They keep figuring out how to actually break into these things. So they've had to, this is true with the trash cans too. They have to constantly, like, readjust how they lock up trash, waste, as well as food, because you can't leave it in your car anymore. Like, back in 1980, you could, as long as you had it covered, you could put it in your car. But not anymore, because these bears have figured it out.
Just remember, the padlock for the front door can only be used for the front door. So your key is going to unlock this padlock, and then you'll be able to pull open the door to get inside of your tent. So as you can see, it's really, really spacious. There's quite a lot of room, especially if it's just one or two of you, even with hiking gear. Now, even in the non-heated tents, you do have this lamp with a pull string that comes down over the bed, and you can turn that on and off to get light as needed in the tent itself. There's no other outlets though, so you'd need to go into the heated option, which would come with an outlet for you to use if you want to, like, charge your phones and things. So initially the bed has a light sheet and a sleeping bag style blanket on top, but you make that part yourself. It's just got the sheets and the pillowcases on. But they do provide some heavy-duty blankets as well. You've got a stool, you've got a bin. So with the bin, you've got a recycling option and then a regular option. There is a safe, but it's not activated, so you can't actually use it, which is a bit useless. There's a little bit of reading material, and there are two very small towels as well. You've got some coat hooks, which are great for hanging things up, especially if things have got a little bit damp and you're trying to dry them off. The towels are really rough, so I'd be cautious about using.
Okay. It looks like these are totally redesigned from the last time I stayed in Boys Town, which was when they had the hantavirus outbreak, which, by the way, he's going to show you the warning signs in a minute here. First of all, it used to be cots. It was cots. Like, I stayed in something that size that had, like, 3 cots in it, and one of them was, like, extra large, and 2 of them were, like, twin size. And I stayed in one of those with my boyfriend, my son, and my mom during the hantavirus outbreak, when they, like, were literally bleaching down these tents and not even telling us that there was a plague. They didn't even tell us. We were there for a week, and on the very last night they told us to come to the front desk, and they moved us into, like, one of their hotel rooms, because they do actually have, like, hotel rooms too. But they had a hantavirus outbreak, which is a very deadly plague. There's literally warning signs on there. But it used to be cots. Like, you didn't have an actual bed, and you were responsible for providing your own bedding. You know, yeah, it was cheaper back then than what he's going to describe, but it sounds like they've made some major improvements to these tents, although they're also saying, hey, by the way, it's still dangerous to stay here.
Those, and the heavy duty blankets look like they've also seen better days. They're pretty dusty and heavy, but if it's cold, you'll be grateful for anything that you can put on top of that to give you that extra bit of warmth. Now, dotted around the frame of the tent, there are more of these hooks, which are just really handy for hanging up even your backpack, just to keep things off the floor. And there's this random little cubby hole, which you can use as a little shelf to store anything, again, if you want to have things off the floor. There's a lot of information inside, and then we'll tell you about this as well, about deer mice.
Yeah, that's exactly why they want you to keep things off the floor, because you could literally get hantavirus. Please keep your things off the floor. Don't, like, seriously. Don't go in there and start sweeping up and dusting things around unless you got a mask on. Make sure you got some bleach, because there's a plague. There's a plague in that part of the Curry Village. That's not even like the normal canvas tent cabin. Unless they like redesigned the entire area, which I doubt they did. This is probably just Boys Town.
And the diseases they carry, as well as black bears, which are active year-round in Yosemite. So you've got to be really careful not to bring anything inside the tent that's going to cause pest problems with the wildlife, or you could get in big trouble. So on the back of the door, there is actually this camp rules statement thing, which you can also find online. This just goes into more detail, basically, about quiet hours, smoking, cooking in your tent. Now, the location is great for Curry Village.
You mean not cooking in your tent? Because you literally cannot cook in your tent. Like, that's not... You cannot store food in that tent. You cannot cook in that tent. I don't even know why you got a recycle and a regular trash bin in your tent. Because you can't be throwing away, like, discarded soda cans in your tent. You can't be doing that bullshit. And yes, during winter, where, like, there's snow on the ground, most of the bears are hibernating at this point, but some of them do wake up and they start doing shit.
And around, and the best thing about it is you can park up the car for your entire stay. You get given a parking permit to park overnight, and then you can use the shuttle bus. So the green bus goes the entire loop of the valley.
By the way, the Curry Village parking lot is the most popular parking lot for bear break-ins. My mom's minivan got broken into, and she didn't have any food at all in her minivan. But we had been visiting my brother at his campsite with some camp chairs, and so we had some camp chairs in the back that smelled like campfire, right? So a bear popped out the back window, reached in, kind of just like looked around, left a paw print, didn't do any other damage other than, breaking the window, and realized there was no food, because like we had no food there. But we got a knock on the door in the middle of the night by a ranger who was banging on the door and acting like it was our fault that a bear broke into the car, but didn't tell us at the time that parking lot actually had more bear activity than any other parking lot in the park. And it's because the Curry family that pioneered that village before it became a national park planted an apple orchard in this dirt parking lot where these trees still exist, and the bears come to eat the apples, and as they do so, they also explore the cars that are in that parking lot and will poke around and try and break into the cars.
And the purple bus is the east side, which will take you to like Mirror Lakes, happy hours, that kind of thing. And there are two stops, a westbound and an eastbound, from right outside of the Curry Village. I think it's stop 14 and 19. In terms of the shower blocks,
I believe the two buses, I don't know if they've changed things because I haven't been there in a few years. Definitely not since before the, like, it was before the pandemic. But the two bus systems, I believe, are the regular bus system that goes around the valley, and then a system that will take you up to like Badger Pass, Glacier Point, the Mariposa Grove, the High Sierra areas. There is another bus system that will take you up, shuttle. It's not even a bus system. It's like a shuttle system. But the one that services the valley is the one that stops at locations like that. The ones that go up to the High Sierra stop in different locations. They're not stopping at the normal shuttle systems where you could be confused by it. They stop in front of the lodging areas. Like the Curry Village has their own area where they launch like tour trams and this other shuttle system that goes up to these locations. At least that's what it was when I was last there.
They're really well kept, really well maintained. You can see the cleaning hours advertised on the outside, and there are some bins dotted around as well where you can keep you can throw your wet and dirty towels in. On top of the doors here, you have a PIN code. So you'll be given a 4-digit PIN code when you check in, and you press enter, and it's normally the same code for both the shower and the toilet.
Well, that's very interesting because generally the campers that are in the campgrounds have to go to Curry Village to bathe as well. So if they've changed it to a PIN code system, how are those people going to bathe? Like, you're trying to lock off what was a public shower from the campers because, like, how because you don't have showers in the campgrounds. Like, everybody went to Curry Village or the Yosemite Lodge to use their showers or housekeeping camp, right?
Now, I filmed this because nobody else was in there at the time. In the shower room, you have these basins, which are pretty deep, and you've got hot and cold water coming from there. There's also hand soap as well that you can use, and there are outlets on the wall, which are really handy if you need to charge a toothbrush or anything like that as well. There's dryers for drying your hands as well as paper towels, and they seem to be very well maintained and stocked while I was in there. Now, behind individual cubicle doors, I counted 6.
Make sure you wear flip-flops. Do not go in there barefooted. I'm telling you straight up, you're gonna get athlete's foot if you just like walk into. They can't keep up with it that much, and the people who are going in there to bathe have been out hiking all day in the dirt, and these people are filthy when they bathe. Okay.
In this room, you'll find a small changing area, and then behind a curtain there is a shower. They provide conditioning shampoo and shower gel. I bought my own bar of soap from the shop just as an extra, and they worked pretty well. Water pressure was decent, and it was hot water. If anyone in your party is handicapped, a really good thing as well is there is a ramp to access the shower blocks, so you don't have to go up the steps. You can use the ramp to get wheelchairs up onto the surfaces. Now, you walk around on these windy paths that go around the trees, and you've got this amazing pizza deck at the main building, which is so good. There's lots of outside seating as well, and they're open till 8:30, even in the off season, so really good pizza in there. There's also a bar called
The reason the pizza is so good is because first of all, they do it thin crust, but second of all, they're using spring water, like High Sierra spring water, to make their dough. So their pizza is so good. It's really solid. And right across from there is like well, he's gonna talk about it here in a second, but there is a lounge area that has a fireplace in it, and it has a covered porch, and you can take your drinks and your food and hang out over there, and just like have some hot chocolate or a beer, whatever you want to do, right? And it's just a super chill area. But when he talks about the Wi-Fi sucks. I'm just being real with you. You might as well just like get off the grid. If you're gonna go to Yosemite, you might as well be off the grid, because um, the only Wi-Fi they have sucks horribly. It's it it's really hard to get a charge even, and it's definitely hard to do any sort of sharing of photos or like social media or whatever. Like it's terrible.
1889, where you can get yourself some alcohol or any other kind of drinks that you might fancy. And there's this really cool like lounge area where there's some board games and Wi-Fi and charging ports as well. Inside, there's the main restaurant, which is cafeteria style, where you pick what you want to eat. They do breakfast. There's beverage stations. You can get hot water, loads of seating, and a really nice fireplace as well. So there's lots of options for you to have some hot food and to just get out from your tent and just enjoy the facilities as well. There's also a coffee shop just down there. And here you'll find some nice, well-maintained gents and ladies toilets as well. So this is my review on the non-heated canvas tent at Curry Village. In terms of price, I would say it was on the expensive side for what it is. It's literally a canvas tent with a frame. But you do get a bed within it, which you wouldn't get if you were, tent camping in your own tent, because unless you've got a massive tent, you're not going to fit a whole bed in there. But I paid $159 just for that, plus tax, obviously. And then there was this like $10 charge that parkreservations.com charged me as well, which made it quite expensive for what it was. So I would say it's definitely overpriced. In terms of the facilities, I think the showers are kept really, really well, as are the toilets. I think it's really well located. I think you stay in a very good location. You've got a gift shop. You've got like a backpackers, climbers shop that sells like proper outdoor gear as well. You've got the cafeteria, the pizza deck, the bar, the coffee shop. You've got the guest lounge, which is basically like a wooden building where there's like some sofas, games inside. There's Wi-Fi outlets, that kind of thing. And the staff were really helpful and really friendly. You've also got the shuttle bus that takes you wherever you need to go within the park. So for that reason alone, that side of it's definitely worth it. But I just think for a non-heated tent, I don't think it should be more than $100, but it is.
You have a meadow directly across from the Camp Curry that every morning do you call them a flock? No. Do you call them a pack? What do you call them? A bunch of mule deer. I don't know, like, the expression here. A bunch of mule deer will come in every morning and not only walk through Curry Village right between the pizza joint and the lounge, but then meander their way into the meadows directly across from it. There's two meadows because there's also a road that separates the meadow. So you've got one that's directly in front of Curry Village and then one that's across the street from Curry Village. So you have a great wildlife experience. But yes, you have to be highly aware of the risks, especially because he stayed in Boys Town, it looks like. And it looks like this is like a renovation that they tried to clean it up after that plague outbreak. But they put up warning signs to tell you that, hey, by the way, this is still a possibility. Might still happen. We were on tenterhooks for like 8 days, worrying about whether or not we had contracted something by staying there. So that's my thoughts.
So I can't change the price. I'm just giving you my view. I have previously stayed in a heated one, which was in late November in like 2019. And that was because it was cold and I didn't want to camp. This time I would have camped if I could have got a reservation, but this was the only way that I could get a reservation, because I couldn't book to camp. So I think in summary, if you're stuck with options, then it's definitely an option, and it's a very good location to spend time within Yosemite. But if you're looking for more of a vacation experience where you're going to want to use the facilities a little bit more, I would say that you could probably stay in the Cedar Lodge outside of the park, which is literally just outside of the park.
Which I'm fairly certain is where the serial killer killed 3 women. We stayed there too, guys. I stayed there with a girlfriend of mine, and there is absolutely no cell reception. There is a history of a serial killer coming in and murdering 3 women, a mom and 2 teenage girls. And when we checked in, I asked the cashier, "Hey, you're not going to put us in the room where the murders happened, right?" And she said, "I don't know what you're talking about." And no, you're going to be just fine. You're not going to be in that room. There is no fucking cell reception at that lodge. Period. I'm fairly certain he's talking about the same place that I'm thinking of. It's off of the Merced River, and there is absolutely no cell reception whatsoever.
Or you could just stay at another lodging option. It's not that cheap. That makes it worth it, unless you are literally looking for that camping experience without bringing your...
There's a Best Western in Oakhurst, which is a pretty good option if you are not going to spend a lot of time in the park. You just want to like be up there for a couple of days or something, like, and maybe one day you check out the High Sierra and then another day you check out the valley. You're just doing like a short trip. There is a Best Western in Oakhurst if you're looking for a less expensive option.
Own gear, in which case I would recommend it. So to give it a score out of 10, price, I would score it 4 out of 10. Facilities, I would score it 7 out of 10. And overall experience in Yosemite, I would probably give it 7 out of 10. So I know that's like the most mixed review I could probably give it, which is exactly how I feel about it actually. I have a mixed view of it. It's cost effective compared to staying at the Ahwahnee, but it's not that great for what you're actually paying. And I think that's the only way I can sum it up, really. But let me know what you think. Have you stayed? Do you think that my review's fair? Have you got any...
The Ahwahnee is like, I think something like $400 to $500 a night. I don't know. It might be more than that now. The Ahwahnee is like the luxury hotel. It's incredibly expensive, but that doesn't mean you can't go over and check it out and like buy a drink in their bar or have lunch in their dining room. They have it's a beautiful experience to go over to the Ahwahnee Hotel, but I don't think I would ever pay for a room to stay there because it's way too expensive.
Questions about it, because there's definitely going to be stuff that I didn't cover in this video. So please comment below. I do check regularly, and of course I'll reply back to any questions you may have. Once again, little plea from me, if you could subscribe, I'd really appreciate it, and also like the video as well. This video has loads of content from especially Yosemite, but also loads of other national parks across the world as well. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you guys again soon.
I don't know about these people who are like showing up for like one day or a couple of days or whatever, and being like, this is what it is, and blah blah blah. Like the other one that I covered where they were basically mountain biking on horse trails, which is illegal in Yosemite. I just don't I don't get like some of this internet content where they're like, we're just gonna put on a GoPro and we don't know what the rules or the laws are in this area, and we're just like do all our own thing. But anyway, it looks like he was staying in Boys Town, which obviously they put warning signs on his tent. I was there when the hantavirus outbreak occurred, and it freaked out my entire family because we were staying in that tent for 8 days, you know. And that was when they had just recently opened up that area. It had formerly been employee housing, and the problem was they had it was double insulated, right? So they had 2 layers of wood on the outside of the tent, and the field mice were getting in there and nesting. And the field mice had contracted hantavirus. So we were a little confused by what was happening, because every time a family was done with their trip and they left their tent, a crew would come in and start spraying bleach all over the place. And we're like, what is going on? Oh, I guess it must just be that time of year when they clean the tents, I guess. And then 7 days into it, we got a notice on the door saying they were going to move us to a hotel room at the front of Curry Village, because they actually do have hotel rooms. So there are other ways to stay in the park. But even I, like, after 4 decades of this shit, I still don't even know all the ways of being able to book some of the other types of lodging that appear to be better. Like, for instance, there are kind of like these sort of cabin accommodations that would be available to like multiple people. And so if you wanted to have like a whole party of people coming up to the park, you could split the cost on that. Like, you could totally split the cost on that, and it would reduce your, nightly expenditures on lodging. But I really don't know what phone number you would call to actually book those types of accommodations. But I know that they have them at Curry Village, and I know that they have them at the Yosemite Lodge area too. Anyway, it's an interesting review of it. Like, he's critical of some things that I'm kind of like, whatever, dude. I like grew up with that bullshit. But then he's also like complimentary of other things that I'm like, oh no, that's the actual problem, right? So I don't know.